Welcome back to Mark My Words Football Podcast with Rob and Scott. Season 3, here we are. Now, you may notice something a little bit different as of right now, as there is just a Scott right now. There is no Rob. Typically, my good friend Rob is sitting directly across the table from me, but unfortunately at this time we are many, many miles away, and we cannot do this live together. So, for the meanwhile, you will just have me. But, thankfully, Rob will be sending in his weekly picks, predictions, and fantasy starts and sits, and hopefully some audio clips along the way to offer some analysis as well. But that out of the way, I would just like to say that I am just so excited to be back for the 2024 NFL season. And we will start things off by giving you our 2024 season predictions. Now, last year was quite a great year for Rob as he correctly predicted the Super Bowl matchup and winner pre-season. So we will see if this year Rob can continue his predicting excellence or if I can take back the crown. Now, Rob and I, for several years now, have done this, where preseason we predict the entire season and have a point system based off to see who does better. Now, let me go ahead and explain that system to you. We go through a simulator and predict each individual NFL game through the season to make sure our predictions are accurate. And at the end of it, when we have our team record totals, we score them like this. Correctly predicting a team record is worth 15 points. If you're 1 game off, it's worth 10 points. If you're 2 games off, it's worth 5 points. If you're 3 games off, it's worth 2 points. And being more than 3 games off is 0 points. We also go through, and through those standings, have a playoff bracket and predict all the playoff games as well. And your team advancing to the predicted playoff round can get you 5, 10, or 15 points for the corresponding round. And correctly predicting the Super Bowl winner gets you 20 points. There is also a 15 bonus points that can be awarded for correctly predicting the playoff matchup in the correct round. In addition to all of that, we also predict the NFL award winners for the season. If your award winner does end up winning that award, it is worth 10 points. And if your predicted award winner gets nominated but does not win, it is worth 5 points. So, with all of that info being relayed to you, we will go ahead and give you our season predictions along with some analysis of why we think that way. And we will start things off by reading off Rob's 2024 season predictions, and afterwards he has sent in some clips with some analysis that they will play for you. So we're going to start off in the AFC, and we're going to go things from top to bottom, starting at the 1 seed and going all the way down to the 16th. And the first seed, he had the Chiefs at 12-5, the Jets 11-6, the Bengals 11-6, Texans 10-7, Bills 10-7, Chargers 10-7, Jaguars 9-8, and then it splits to the non-playoff teams. Ravens 9-8, Steelers 9-8, Dolphins 8-9, Browns 8-9, Colts 8-9, Broncos 7-10, Titans 6-11, Raiders 4-13, Patriots 3-14. And on the NFC side, he has the Rams at the top seed at 12-5, the Lions at 12-5, the Eagles at 11-6, the Falcons at 10-7, the Cowboys at 10-7, the Packers at 10-7, and the 49ers at 10-7. And in the non-playoff teams, he has the Buccaneers 9-8, Bears 9-8, Seahawks 8-9, Cardinals 8-9, Commanders 7-10, Saints 7-10, Giants 5-12, Panthers 5-12, and Vikings 3-14. Then in the AFC playoffs, he has the Texans defeating the Bills, the Bengals defeating the Chargers, and the Jets defeating the Jaguars. In AFC Divisional, there is the Bengals defeating the Jets and the Chiefs defeating the Texans, and the Chiefs defeating the Bengals to advance to the Super Bowl. On the NFC side, he has the Cowboys defeating the Falcons, the Packers defeating the Eagles, and the Lions defeating the 49ers in the wild card. Then the Rams prevailing over the Packers, and the Lions over the Cowboys in the divisional. Finally, with the Lions over the Rams in the conference finals for a Super Bowl of Lions versus Chiefs, and he has the Chiefs winning. And as for his awards, he has MVP Joe Burrow, Offensive Player of the Year Bijan Robinson, Defensive Player of the Year Micah Parsons, Offensive Rookie of the Year Caleb Williams, Defensive Rookie of the Year, Jared Verse. Comeback Player of the Year, J.K. Dobbins. And Coach of the Year, Jim Harbaugh. And now on my side of things, in the AFC, I have the Ravens as a top seed at 13-4, the Chiefs at 12-5, the Texans at 12-5, the Bills 11-6, the Jets 11-6, Cincinnati 11-6, and Jacksonville at 10-7. And the non-playoff teams, I have Indianapolis 9-8, Miami 8-9, Cleveland 8-9, Pittsburgh 7-10, Denver 7-10, Tennessee 7-10, the Chargers 7-10, the Raiders 4-13, and New England 3-14. Where in the NFC side, I have San Francisco at 13-4, Detroit 11-6, Dallas 11-6, Atlanta 10-7, LA Rams 10-7, the Packers 10-7, and the Seahawks 8-9. And for non-playoff teams, I have Chicago at 8-9, Philadelphia 8-9, Tampa Bay 8-9, the Giants 7-10, the Saints 7-10, Arizona at 6-11, Washington at 6-11, Carolina at 6-11, and Minnesota at 3-14. Then in the playoffs, in the wildcard round, I have Buffalo over the Jets, Houston over Cincinnati, Kansas City over Jacksonville, Atlanta over the LA Rams, Green Bay over Dallas, and Detroit over Seattle. Then in the divisional, I've got Houston over Kansas City, Baltimore over Buffalo, Detroit over Atlanta, and San Francisco over Green Bay. So in the conference finals, I have Houston over Baltimore and San Francisco over Detroit. For Super Bowl of San Francisco over Houston. And in the awards, I have MVP Josh Allen, Offensive MVP Bijan Robinson, Defensive MVP Aiden Hutchinson, Offensive Rookie of the Year Marvin Harrison Jr., Defensive Rookie of the Year Laiatu Lato, Coach of the Year Raheem Morris, and Comeback Player of the Year Aaron Rodgers. And after all that monotonous talking, which was hopefully not too monotonous for you, let's get right into our Week 1 game picks. So in Week 1, we start things off with a great matchup here with the Baltimore Ravens versus the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, in this one, I'll have the Ravens winning, and Rob has picked the Chiefs. I think that the Chiefs have the potential to come out a little slow with the new offensive system, especially without Marquise Brown, and I do like the Ravens defense a little better, therefore I will have Baltimore winning in this one. Next up, we have a matchup in Brazil of the Green Bay Packers and the Philadelphia Eagles. Rob and I both have predicted the Packers to win this one. I definitely am a little lower on the Eagles this year than it seems like a majority of the people are. Not sure if Rob quite agrees with me in that fight, but I know he is quite high on the Packers. So maybe for a little bit different reasons, but we both do have the Packers prevailing in this game. And after that, there is the Atlanta Falcons versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. In this one, Rob and I will both have the Falcons winning. Now for this year, the Falcons are such an interesting team for me. I tried so hard not to get on their bandwagon, but after what they did, trading for Matthew Judon and then signing Justin Simmons, those were the two things that they absolutely needed, and I'm just fully on board with Atlanta. And of course, Pittsburgh, get out of here with Pittsburgh. They are not going to have a good year. Rob's not here to disagree with me, even though he would. But yeah, Falcons for in this one. Really excited to see what Kirk Cousins is going to look like in that offense. And after that, we'll have a matchup of the Buffalo Bills and the Arizona Cardinals. And in this game, Rob and I have both picked the Bills. So it'll be a new look offense for the Bills coming into this year. And I think a lot of people are interested to see what that looks like. See what receivers are going to be utilized and how. And on the other side, the Cardinals, with Murray being back, the debut of Marvin Harrison Jr., certainly some interesting things could be in store for Arizona. And maybe they're not a team to sleep on this year, but we shall see how this game shakes out. Although I do like the Bills to get a decent win, although I wouldn't pick a blowout and I wouldn't take their spread. And then after that, there will be the Chicago Bears and the Tennessee Titans. Now, Rob and I have both picked the Bears in this game. And as per usual, the Chicago Bears have just been the media darlings of the offseason for, what is this, the third consecutive year? Yeah, I'm not on this. I'm not buying it. Absolutely, they're going to be improved. I think they did a lot of great things this offseason to improve, but I just don't see them taking a step big enough to make the playoffs, even in an NFC where I don't feel there's a ton of great teams. And I think there is going to be a team that makes that playoffs. It really doesn't deserve to be there. But I don't think the Bears are going to make the playoffs. And on the other hand, Tennessee could be fun. It actually could be fun now. Now they have an actual coaching staff in place there. They could be interesting to watch, although I really don't think that they could make any noise this year. But there could actually be fun and interesting games to watch, which is just so much different than what they have been. And then after that, you've got the Cincinnati Bengals versus the New England Patriots. Bengals could be missing several players, with T. Higgins doubtful, and Jamar Chase is up in the air as his contract extension has still not been sorted out. And in this game, Rob and I have both picked the Bengals anyway. But I don't think either of us have done it with great confidence, even versus a team as lowly as New England. And Joe Burrow coming back as well from that injury, who knows if he really is 100%. I don't know that he will be. I think there could be some struggles from Cincinnati to start this year, and even though I've picked them to make the playoffs and have a good record, I feel like I may already be regretting that. On the other hand, we got New England, like I said, just such a lowly team, so talent-starved, and it seems like, in my eyes, there's no way they're not tanking, having traded away their best player in Judon, and then cutting Juju Smith-Schuster, who is probably their most talented wide receiver. Like, they obviously want to tank. They have absolutely no interest in trying to be a good team this year. They have a lot of players that are out. Christian Barmore out for the year already with some health issues. This is going to be a bad team. That offense is going to look very bad. And I think they would be well to not put Drake May into the game this year if they can't help it, because that is going to be a bad offense. After that is going to be the Houston Texans and the Indianapolis Colts. And in this game, Rob and I will both have the Texans winning, but I think this game could be closer than some may realize. I know Houston has definitely been a big favorite, and a lot of people really like them this year. Myself, one of them. I think they made a couple of absolutely amazing splash additions in Danielle Hunter and Stephon Diggs, and can certainly take another step. But something I think we will definitely see from the Texans this year is C.J. Stroud's interceptions will regress to the mean, and he will throw more interceptions. Because last year, he threw the same amount of percentage balls that could have been intercepted as Josh Allen. But he got pretty lucky, and a lot of them were not picks. And Indianapolis, on the other hand, I think there could be a sneaky good team this year. I did not have them in the playoffs, but I feel like I could have. I really like Shane Steichen and what that team has been building. And hopefully we can see Anthony Richardson this year in a full season and not see more injuries. But I have just really liked what the Colts have built. I've liked so many of their draft picks over the last few years. And yeah, just what they've begun to build and how that team is run. And after that, we do have the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Miami Dolphins. I have picked the Jaguars, and Rob has picked the Dolphins in this one. I think that Jacksonville Jaguars are actually a team that are getting slept on a little bit this year, although Rob and I both have them in the playoff picture. I think looking at, in that division, they're kind of getting stepped over. I know that they really disappointed last year, but I think that doesn't take away from the talent level and what they have added to that team. I think they do have a really good defensive line. They have some big splash players there, and they've added some more in that wide receiver again, adding Gabe Davis and Brian Thomas Jr., along with Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram. And I do think that Lawrence is a star, and he's going to prove it. This could be a really fun matchup. I think one of the best matchups of the week, actually, Jacksonville and Miami. Miami is a very interesting team to me as well, too. I think they're super talented, and they're super well coached. There's absolutely no bones about it. But I think we've seen it each of the last couple of years. What they are lacking, they're lacking in a team toughness, and they just seem to fall apart come December and January. And I think that's going to be their downfall once again this year. And then after that, we have the New Orleans Saints and the Carolina Panthers. And Rob and I have both picked the Saints in this one. Now, here's a couple of teams that I don't think are going to be very good. I think the Panthers will definitely see some improvement, and maybe we could see some more from Bryce Young. I think we were maybe a little hard on him, but I guess we will see about that. And as for the Saints, I'm not expecting much from this team this year. Why they didn't fire Dennis Allen, I'll never know. They've lost a lot of talent, and kicking the can down the road on the salary cap, I think, has put them in a bad position at long last. And they are not going to be a fun team to watch this year. But that being said, I do have them winning this week. And then after that, we have a game between the Minnesota Vikings and the New York Giants. And Rob and I both have the Giants winning this one. So I'll start off with saying about the Vikings. Vikings are not a good team. Very similar to New England for me. I think the Vikings have a chance to be one of the worst teams in the league, possibly get the worst record. I have no confidence in Sam Darnold, even with Justin Jefferson. Like, they're just not a super talented team. I don't think that they're super well coached. I just think they're going to be a terrible team this year. As for the Giants, they're another team that's just not super talented, and I think it's just going to be a very middling team, like 6 to 7 wins. But I think they are going to be able to sneak out a win this week. And then after that, we've got the Las Vegas Raiders and the Los Angeles Chargers. And in this one, Rob and I have both picked the Chargers. I know Rob is quite high on the Chargers this year, picking Jim Harbaugh to be Coach of the Year and various other awards, and I am not as high on the Chargers. I really don't like Greg Roman and how he coaches an offensive scheme. I don't think that team is going to be particularly good. Even though I do really like Justin Herbert, I think they're going to be a more middling team. I don't think they're going to be really utilizing Herbert to his full potential, and they're really going to be handicapping him, similar to what Greg Roman did in Baltimore with Lamar Jackson. And the Raiders, on the other hand, like also another very untalented team. They've got Gardner Minshew at the helm to start the year, and things have just not been good there in Las Vegas the last couple of years. Hoping they can turn some things around with Antonio Pierce and maybe like a realistic and just competent coaching staff, maybe. But for now, I think I would say that they are not going to be a very good team this year either. And after that, we've got the Seattle Seahawks and the Denver Broncos. And Rob and I have both picked Seattle in this one. Seattle, I think, is a team that could sneak into the NFC playoffs, and I do have them as that 7th seed, but I don't know they're going to be particularly competitive. I wouldn't say that they are. I don't trust Geno Smith. Even though they do have a very good defense, yeah, I just don't trust that Geno Smith can really elevate that team to what they would need to be contending. And as for Denver, it seems like another throwaway year for them. Not very talented, and just trying to put the pieces together after having to dump off the awful, awful contract of Russell Wilson. And they're a team I don't think it's going to be very interesting to watch this year either. And then after that, you've got the Dallas Cowboys and the Cleveland Browns. And in this game, Rob and I have both picked the Cowboys. And for me, I think that Dallas is going to win that division this year, and fairly easily at that. I don't think there's a whole lot of great teams in that division otherwise. Not that Dallas is going to be like the top contender. I think they're going to be very good, and they're handily going to win that division. Because I just really don't have any faith in Philadelphia, nor Washington, or the Giants. And facing a Cleveland team who should be on the rise, they really should. They feel like they've done everything right. They've got a great offensive line, a great defense, some good weapons. But there's one thing holding them back, and that's Deshaun Watson. And just because of the such huge investment they've placed into Watson, I think they're going to end up holding on to that for way too long, and that's going to end up being their demise this year, and that's what I think will ultimately have them out of the AFC playoffs. But in this one, I think it's going to be a really nice game this week. Could be a little low scoring, but we both will have Dallas prevailing in this one. And then after that, you've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Washington Commanders. And Rob and I both have the Buccaneers winning in this one. I know Rob is probably much higher than I am on the Buccaneers, as I think they're going to be a little bit of a middling team. But Rob is quite high on Baker Mayfield and crew there in Tampa Bay. And Washington, like kind of as I talked about with Denver, I feel very similar about Washington. Kind of a throwaway year as they try and retool and just get things back on track. They've tried to put together some better pieces, but yeah, not a whole lot going on there in Washington this year. They're not going to be very competitive. Could be kind of fun, but definitely not competitive. And as for Tampa Bay, Tampa Bay just does not inspire much for me. I think they'll win this week. They'll probably win a decent amount of games. They might sniff around by a wild card spot, but I don't think they'll be good by any stretch of the imagination. And after that, we've got Sunday Night Football between the Los Angeles Rams and the Detroit Lions. And just a really amazing matchup here. And Rob has the Rams winning, and I have the Lions. For me, I still really love the Lions this year and what they've done. Being able to keep Ben Johnson was huge for them, and I think they're primed to be another great year, to be a really, really good team and a top contender in the NFC. Or Rob, on the other hand, he is extremely high on the Rams this year, as he thinks they're going to get the number one seed, and he said there's nothing he's ever been more confident in, is what he messaged me this week. So we may be going kind of back and forth about the Rams and maybe some other teams this year, especially one of the teams that we're going to talk about next game. But this should really be an amazing matchup. This was an awesome game in the wild card last year, and hopefully we'll see some more of the same Sunday night. And then our final game we'll talk about today is between the San Francisco 49ers and the New York Jets. And Rob and I will both have the 49ers winning, which is a surprise to me since Rob is not high on the 49ers at all, but is on the Jets. Yeah, Rob was almost saying that he considered putting the 49ers out of the playoff picture and thinks that it is insane for me to have them at the record that I predicted them at. But I think undoubtedly the 49ers are the most talented team in the NFC, and I think they will get the 1 seed and make their way back to the Super Bowl. The Jets are just such an interesting team. Like, they fixed their flaws. They really tried hard to fix their flaws. But in the way they did so, they got a lot of players who are wild cards in the fact that, like, they've had a lot of injuries. So you could see things go really well for them or just immediately fall off the rails. So the Jets are certainly a team that a lot of people are going to have eyes on. And, I mean, you will as well, because they'll be on in the primetime games 6 of the first 11 weeks of the year, so you're going to be seeing a lot of the Jets at the start of the season, and I think we'll have a pretty good handle on them by then, if they will be good or not. And following all that, we're going to go into our all-in bet of the week. So Rob and I will both pick a game against the spread that we're just all in on. We're all over that team for this week. So I'll start things off. So my all-in bet of the week is going to be the New England Patriots at plus 8.5. With the injuries and just questions that Cincinnati has, as well as their history of having bad starts, I do think Cincinnati will win this one, but it's going to be closer than that. So I really like New England to cover 8.5 for this week. And now Rob, on the other hand, he will also pick a plus number, as he's going to take the Arizona Cardinals at plus 6.5. I'd mentioned it earlier as well that I would not take the Bills, and he is definitely on the side of the Cardinals as well, as he thinks the Bills will win, but it is not going to be by more than 6.5. He thinks it's going to be much more of a closer game. I would definitely agree with him on that one. So our all-in bets for this week: Patriots plus 8.5, Cardinals plus 6.5. And following that, back this year is going to be Rob's fantasy starts and sits of the week. He has sent those in for you, and I'll read them to you now. So this week, Rob says, start running back Devin Singletary. Singletary flew under the radar in fantasy drafts this season, 84 overall ADP, but being in the Giants' clear primary back gives him higher floor than many running backs taken ahead of him. Combine that with the fact that the Giants are facing the soft Vikings defense now stripped of Danielle Hunter, I see an excellent opening performance for Singletary coming. So start Devin Singletary. Also start running back James Cook. Cook was already putting up decent numbers before Joe Brady stepped into the offensive coordinator role, but once he did, Cook exploded into top running back stats. I expect the Bills to continue their run-heavy approach that won them games in the final stretch of last season, and no better opponent to pound the rock against than the Cardinals. Arizona was arguably the worst run defense last season, allowing the most yards and the fourth most touchdowns. James Cook is a must-start in any lineup this week, so start James Cook. And on the other hand, we have our sits. This week, Rob says, sit quarterback Joe Burrow. It may feel wrong to bench a starter of Burrow's caliber, but if you have a viable backup quarterback, do it. The Bengals have been notorious for starting off the year slowly, highlighted by last year's drubbing by the Browns, and I don't expect anything different this season fantasy-wise, especially since Burrow hasn't seen starting regular season action since the middle of last season. Although Belichick is gone, the Pats should still have a formidable defense under former linebacker Jared Mayo's lead. Don't take the risk. Sit Joe Burrow. Also sit wide receiver Brandon Ayuk. The star of the offseason finds himself in a tough spot in Week 1. He'll go up against one of the best cornerbacks in the game in Sauce Gardner and one of the best defenses in general in the Jets. As of writing this, it looks like Trent Williams could hold out of week 1, so it looks like there's a high likelihood of Purdy being under duress from the majority of the dropbacks. Combine all this with the fact that Ayuk missed all of training camp and will likely have some rust to shake off. I deem it to be a week 1 bust. So sit, Brandon Ayuk. And finally, we will have returning this year Scott's parlay bet of the week. So in my parlay bet, I picked 3 teams on the money line that I like to put into a parlay. And this week, my 3 teams, we are going to have the Green Bay Packers over the Philadelphia Eagles. Like I said before, I am not high on the Eagles, and I absolutely do really like the Packers in this game, as they are an underdog at plus 118. I also like, as an underdog this week, the New York Giants versus the Minnesota Vikings. So Giants at plus 106, I'm going to get in here at a pretty good number that I like, because I am confident that they can win this game versus Minnesota. And finally, I've got the Detroit Lions over the Los Angeles Rams at minus 198. Even at a minus number, I do like Detroit in this game, as I do believe they're the better team over the Rams. Even though I do think this is going to be a close game, I do like Detroit here. So this week, bet on the money line, Green Bay Packers, New York Giants, Detroit Lions. And that is all I have for all of you folks today. I hope you've enjoyed listening, and if you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe, give us a rating. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcasts. This has been Mark My Words Football Podcast with Rob and Scott.